I feel like I should tell a joke, but I'm not very good at jokes, so I'll stick to the more serious issue of heritage crime. And apologies, it's a bit of a depressing topic, but hopefully the work we're doing will be a positive example of a way to tackle this particular issue. So I work for the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park. Let's see if I can get this to work. Well, there we are. So for any of you maybe not so familiar, so the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park is all the kind of designated green areas on the local map, and we're part of a family of 15 national parks in the UK. Possibly we'll have a fourth, but we'll see if that happens. It's supposed to by the end of this decade, I think. So just to kind of emphasise the importance of highlighting the national park. So I work for the National Park Authority, and we basically carry out the duties of this national park, and that includes safeguarding special qualities. And of course, for us, cultural heritage is really important, and archaeology comes under that. Hence why this scheme is really important to us. And just to highlight that, I thought it would be good to just put this on the screen to visualise that. So what you're looking at is some brown spots. So they represent the records, so the historic environment records, which you might have seen on Archwilio. So as a local authority, we get a copy of this, but what I wanted to do was filter it to the national park area, and hopefully you can see it kind of mirrors the designated area. So that emphasises how the landscape is completely shaped by humans over a long time. So people talk about this kind of natural wild landscape, but actually the landscapes of the UK and our national park is very much, it's been shaped by people. So you can see hopefully how important that is as a quality for the national park. And then just kind of drilling down from that, you hopefully can just about see, it's very difficult to get a good clear visually, but you can see these, maybe at the back you'll struggle, but you'll have to just believe me when I say there are some yellow spots of different sizes on the screen, and that represents the scheduled monuments in the national park area. So there's just under 300 of these for the national park. And the type of archaeology ranges from the late Paleolithic all the way through to very recent times, and of course different types of sites. So it's just to emphasise the importance. Sorry, I keep deferring to wanting, but I can do it with this, can't I? There we are. So just to highlight why we started Heritage Watch. So Julian in the last talk talked about those natural processes that are a threat to our archaeology. So I'm kind of focusing on the human threat to our heritage. So back in 2018, prior to me working for the National Park, my predecessor Delyn, she set up a scheme called Heritage Watch, and since 2018 we've just continued to develop that. And the reason she started that was this fantastic site near Mynachlogddu in the Preseli called Gorsfawr. So it's a complete stone circle from the Bronze Age. We think it's pretty much as it would have been constructed in the past. It's a fantastic setting. And the problem we were having, of course, we really like that people visit these sites and enjoy them, but we had an issue around the summer solstice that people were wanting to obviously burn in the centre. Delyn did come up with some ingenious ways to mitigate this. So she actually bought a burning pit, which you could put temporarily in place, but she felt that we still needed to come up with some sort of initiative to try and educate people about the importance of the monuments. And then sort of coincidentally in 2018, we had, you might know this very iconic monument, maybe not, but we had some other issues with this one in 2018. So initially when we were going to set up Heritage Watch, it was an initiative between the National Park and Dyfed Powys Police. And then this happened at a guardianship site of Cadw. So Cadw were really keen to get involved. And what happened is somebody daubed some, this is a Celtic Triskel symbol. And also, this one might not be so clear, so I'll just highlight it. There's a heart, basically, on one of the standing stones under the main capstone. So they did, actually Cadw did some analysis, and interestingly, they found traces of animal blood. So Who knows what the significance is of that? But essentially this then brought CADU in, and CADU was quite keen to support this initiative. And these two sites highlighted there was clearly an issue with heritage crime. So we set up this. This was the initial branding, and there's the 3 logos of the organisations. Although actually I have to say some of the branding of organisations has changed since this 2018 version. So in terms of what is Heritage Watch, what's it trying to achieve? So from my perspective, I think it's got 5 areas, which hopefully you can see there. So you've got the public awareness to raise the issue, people are aware of heritage crime as a problem. You've got the, reporting, so trying to empower people so they know how they can report, and so that we're getting that data coming in. Doing some training with not only just professionals, but the public, and just, so people are equipped with what is heritage crime and then how you deal with that. So they're all kind of interlinked. Monitoring and patrol. So when we know there's issues happening, we can then start to tailor, when we visit sites, but also just generally monitoring. So I'll mention in a bit a monitoring scheme that the National Park has where things are coming through in terms of heritage crime, unfortunately. And then the final one is around repair work. So that is all to do with where it's possible, we'll carry out work, but I'll come back onto that issue shortly. So the first one is obviously the enabling people to report and also raising awareness. So what we did after the scheme was set up, or as part of that, initially there was a Facebook page set up by Delyn, and then that's gone through iterations of development in terms of branding, and hopefully you can see some of those new logos that have been added to it, so the partnership has grown. In terms of Facebook, so we've got about just over 600 followers, and some of the posts we put on has been seen by, I think one of the posts I saw was over 14,000, although I think we've had even higher posts in the past. And that's all about how different organisations are sharing that information. More recently, we also set up what is now called an X account, or formerly Twitter. We've got slightly less followers, but again, both the 2 platforms are there for us to kind of give people information about, issues we want to raise that are currently a problem, or it's about highlighting events like this where we're coming to do a talk about Heritage Watch and heritage crime. And then the other thing we've set up is we've got a web page on the National Park website, and I think that Dyfed-Powys Police are looking at doing something similar. So really, Dyfed-Powys Police should have this on their page. But as it stands, because we set up the scheme, we kind of developed that. So on there's information about what is a heritage crime and what can you do about it. You can also sign up to a mailing list. And some of the other things we do to raise awareness is we have a annual newsletter. Just tells you what we've been up to for the year. And you can sign up to our mailing list, which will give you information from time to time. And then just kind of following on the theme of public awareness and reporting, we have done several interviews with various media. What's really positive is the Facebook and the X account, they're clearly working because some of the attention we've got has come through because of that. Efforts to put those posts on, but we've done stuff with local media like the Western Telegraph, or more national S4C, BBC, ITV. So there's several different outlets we're trying to tap into to raise the profile of this issue. In terms of reporting, so these are just some lovely examples of some of the issues we've had, and I have got a sheet, so apologies, I'm going to have to rely on this as a note because it tells me what types of incidents we've had. So since 2018, the National Park has been reporting along with volunteers and members of the public and other agencies. So we've had to date 69 incidents, and these are just some of those examples. So just to highlight the types, I had a look the other day on our spreadsheet. So vandalism, which hopefully you can see there, graffiti, arson, And arson also for the policing purpose covers things like, you might have an innocent campfire out in the wild, but that would be covered under that definition. Disturbance, rearrangement, night hawking, unauthorised metal detecting, theft, damage, burglary, off-roading, unauthorised works, trespassing and antisocial behaviour. So that hopefully gives you a kind of flavour. And it's worth highlighting with those types, in a lot of cases, the heritage isn't the direct victim. It's almost someone doing something on the site. In some cases, it will be intentional, so they might be stealing something, or they're doing something like unauthorised metal detecting. So in some cases, it will be. In a lot of cases, they're just indirect. So the graffiti, this is from a monument in St. David's. I don't think the youths who are doing this are doing it to target the heritage. It's just, unfortunately, the heritage is the indirect victim of this particular issue. In terms of the reports, we share them. So the National Park, when we report, we will then share with the HENEB, or what was the Archaeological Trusts, CADU as well. So we're all sharing that data, and that sort of builds a picture of the types of problems we've got, and that can help in terms of resourcing with patrolling and monitoring. So it's really useful data for that purpose, but hopefully you can just see the examples there. So the other thing I mentioned when I talked about the strands of Heritage Watch was around training. So prior to COVID, we used to deliver in-person training. So the last one we delivered, which is that lovely photo of us around a monument, that was for the neighbourhood policing team in Pembrokeshire, and that was in partnership with the inspector from CADU. And we just highlighted the legislation around things like scheduled monuments and designations, and then we highlighted what's a heritage crime and what can the neighbourhood policing team do to try and help us tackle this. And then COVID hit. We were supposed to do a pan-Wales training, so for organisations across Wales, so the police forces, but other organisations interested in heritage. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that, so we did this joint training event online. So COVID, I think someone mentioned, it has changed the way we can carry out some of these. So we've done several virtual training events since, but hopefully you can just see the logos there. So we even had, you might have seen, he's been in I think he's the lead nationally, Mark Harrison from Historic England. So he was helping us with that training. We had some of the national parks there, and we even had some neighbouring police forces. So I think West Mercia and Cheshire were also involved. So that's really positive. And then just some other things in terms of training. So talks as well, public events, and I've got the information with me. If you go to the stall, it's the same place where the postcards, which have the QR code so you can see the reconstructions the National Park have created. So just some of the stuff we're doing in terms of training. And then the patrols, so really good. So we've got into quite a good routine. So when we know key times of the year, we'll carry out patrols. So around the summer solstice, there's particular sites, particularly in the Preseli for us, which will be at risk of potential things like the image I showed at the beginning around fires. So this is a PCSO who quite regularly visits, and sometimes we will post about that, and people seem to like seeing that. We can also target, so things like antisocial behaviour happening in the urban centres. We can, we know when potentially those things are going to happen, so the police can, do their patrols at particular points in time. And then the other thing to mention for the National Park, we set up a scheme in 2020. So this was, again, around the time of COVID. We did some virtual training, and I know there's some here who do some monitoring for us. And what we've done with that group is we've trained them around things like heritage crime. As a result of that, some of the data around the 69 reports we've had since 2018 came from those volunteers. Some will report, some will let me know, and then I will pass that on. This is just a nice photo of one of them just visiting sites. But that's just ongoing monitoring. So it's really good to give us that picture. One thing I should have mentioned about reporting as well is I've been to some national meetings where the police give their intel, and they were looking at heritage crime in Wales, and Pembrokeshire, or the national park area, looked like it had disproportionately a problem with heritage crime, but actually that is, I think someone else raised it in one of the talks before, it's about the reporting. So it looks like we've got lots of heritage crime in our area as a problem, but actually it's probably the same in other places. Probably different issues, but it's just an important point to mention. So this is kind of a positive note around patrolling. So the last summer solstice last year, the local PCSO and our National Park Ranger, they visited Gorsfawr, so that first site that kind of inspired us to set up this scheme. This was the amount of people, and this is in a really remote part, of people who wanted to come and enjoy that site around the summer solstice. But what was really nice was, instead of a fire in the middle, we had some flowers. So I think we can put up with some flowers. So that was a really positive message. So just on sort of repair, I think I kind of approached this before when I was looking at one of the other strands. So in a lot of cases, some of these will be really straightforward to deal with. So we get a lot of rearrangement of cairns, ramparts. In this case, I was out with some volunteers on Carningley. People had created a shelter inside one of the ramparts. So what we did is we just reconsolidated, so refilled that in. What takes the time is, as a scheduled monument, we needed that consent from Cadw. And that's the important thing, is it's important that people don't just go ahead and they might be doing the right thing, or they think they are, but sometimes if they're designated, you do need that consent so you can carry out the work. So we worked with Cadw to get the consent and decide the approach to deal with that. And then other ones involved, so this second one is just the result of, we had some unsightly graffiti on another monument, and the poor ranger had a toothbrush for a few hours with this special agent, which was not, it wasn't corrosive abrasive, it was just the special stuff to remove the graffiti. They spent a couple of hours doing that, which, take my hat off to them. And then the last one, in other cases, it's just a case, and this is Toby Driver here with me, we'd done a guided walk around St Bride's, and then in the lime kiln, someone had decided it was a good place to have a fire, obviously. So we just removed that material and then just let the area just naturally repair. And we're really careful about the kind of posts we do, because sometimes we can have a bit of backlash, or we can inspire others to carry the same type of activity. So we have to think carefully about that as well. And this is just an example in terms of repair. Sometimes what we do is we just let the place naturally repair. So we might have taken away some of the material used for this fire. This is St David's Head Camp. So this is quite a large, or the remains of a hut circle. And then in the centre, someone's had this quite large fire. This was back in 2020 or 2021. And obviously we've got a nice volunteer there for scale, so you can see the size. But essentially in this one, what we did is we just monitored over a number of years. Just to highlight as well, in a lot of cases, the damage is also having an impact on the natural environment, because a lot of these are designated as triple SIs as well. So, they're not only just impacting the historic environment, but the natural environment as well. And then unfortunately, we have our cases where we just can't do any repair. The damage is just the type of damage. So in this case, while it's really, obviously they're very good at doing this on the stone, but you can't do any kind of repair on that. It's just, unfortunately, you've just got to try and mitigate and try and educate people not to do these sorts of things in the future. And again, with graffiti, one of the problems we get is we might clear off that graffiti, but the problem that happens is you clear that off and then you get ghosting. So the shadow of what was there is still there. So in some cases, we can't actually, do the repair work. So in terms of the Heritage Watch, so it started as something set up in 2018 between 3 organisations, and since then it's grown. So it's now logically covering Dyfed-Powys, so the middle. So we cover that large patch, and that basically mirrors the police force. And then in terms of a national picture, so this scheme is helping feed into, you know, the trends. We're also supporting the setting up a North Wales Heritage Watch, which is currently kind of in development. And again, you know, we've been feeding into training. So we're kind of going from that localized all the way up to, you know, the national picture. So this is a lovely picture. And, this was after our training I mentioned we did before COVID. So in terms of the Heritage Watch scheme, so I think the legacy or what we've achieved so far is, you know, it's increased reporting. We're carrying out repair work at sites. Collaboration has increased as a result. You know, we're delivering training, and, you know, we've got quite an effective monitoring and patrolling scheme going. So I think the Heritage Watch is key, and it's going to help us safeguard, you know, heritage in, you know, now and into the future. So thank you very much. That's my final message. And then there's just some key links there.